built this city. We built this city on pork, and so built this city. We built this city on pork and
Some of you probably already know that Cincinnati had a massive pork processing industry in the 1800s. But there's more to the tale than meets the snout. The story of Porkopolis is rooted right here in the forest. Welcome to Pop Wild. I'm your host Maria, and on today's episode, we'll trace the natural history of the pork industry in Cincinnati. Tag along. I'd like you to meet my special guests, Wilbur, Daniel Boone, and Peter the pig. Now these pigs are domestic pigs, which are descendants of wild pigs and a subspecies of them. In fact, if left in the wild, domestic pigs can start taking on the characteristics of wild pigs within a couple of generations. Now these friends are eating some feed and some fruit and vegetable scraps today, but pigs are omnivores. If left in the wild, they'll eat roots, they'll eat fruits, they'll eat small animals, and pretty much anything else that comes their way. One thing that comes their way each fall plays a particularly outsized role in the history of Porkopolis. Along with colored leaves, a chill in the air, pumpkin spice, and Instagram scarves, fall provides us with something else. This stuff. Acorns, walnuts, beech nuts, hickory nuts, also known as mast. Mast provides food for many creatures in the forest. You might have seen squirrels or chipmunks in your own neighborhood gathering this stuff up for winter. But here's the thing. Pigs are also nuts about nuts, and mast has been used for centuries as a way to fatten them up.
Foodies, you might have heard of acorn-finished pork or the famed Spanish pata negra. Today, raising pigs this way is a specialty, but in the early days of the US, feeding pigs en masse was a regular practice. When European settlers came to America, they brought with them crops and livestock in attempts to recreate the contained, rural lifestyle they were used to. In the New World, however, there weren't orderly hedgerows and people to tend the animals, just a whole lot of woods and the need to survive. Settlers sent their pigs off into the woods to forage, and pigs adapted very well to this new lifestyle. Pigs reverted to their wild traits, turning into lean, mean, mast-eating machines. As the United States swept westward into what is now Ohio, pioneers brought this tradition of pig rearing with them. Early farmers in the Cincinnati area would turn their semi-feral pigs over into the forest each fall to nosh on the abundant beech nuts, acorns, and hickory nuts that grew here. Mast was so important that the value of land was for a time based on the number of nut-producing trees on that land. This practice continued into the early 1800s as Cincinnati's pork processing industry grew into a behemoth of stockyards and disassembly lines. Its location on the river and newly developed pork preservation techniques allowed Cincinnati to corner the hog market. Each fall, farmers and fatteners would drive pigs by the hoof into downtown Cincinnati. Pigs wandered loose in the streets and alleys, running underfoot. The smell was, let's say, unpleasant. As one 19th century British traveler wrote,
As there is a railway system and a hotel system, so there is also a pig system, by which this place is marked out from any other. Huge quantities of these useful animals are reared after harvest in the cornfields of Ohio, and on the beech mast and acorns of its gigantic forests. At a particular time of year, they arrive by thousands, brought in drove and steamers to the number of 500,000 to meet their doom, when it is said that the Ohio runs red with blood.
Porkopolis indeed. But by the second half of the 19th century, Cincinnati had become much more populated and most of the forest had been cut down to make farms. Pigs returned to the pen and the yard, more domesticated breeds were developed, and corn became the feed of choice. The days of mast foraging were, for the most part, over.
But the story doesn't end here. In addition to pork, the thousands of pigs being slaughtered every year led to the creation of byproduct industries. A little company called Procter & Gamble got its start here by using lard to make soap and candles. And another byproduct industry ties us right back here to this forest and the creation of the Cincinnati Nature Center itself.
Although pigs still roamed the streets, by the late 1800s, Cincinnati's pork boom was winding down. A boy named Carl was growing up at his family's home in downtown Cincinnati. His father owned a successful shoe company, Krippendorf Shoes, built on leather from the pork byproduct industry. But despite having above-average means, Carl still found himself growing ill from the bad conditions in the industry-heavy town. Seeing Carl's decline, his family sent him to live with friends in the countryside, right about here where the nature center stands. Carl thrived, running through the woods and playing with friends.
It was these childhood memories that led Carl to build his home here, amid the beech trees and the oaks, the very places that a pig would have loved to forage. Today, the Krippendorf estate stands here, in the forest, still welcoming guests, and a reminder of how the story of Porkopolis is rooted in the forest. We've finally come full circle, and as we can see, although humans affect the story of the land also affects our story. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep it curious.